G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Off Ukraine War Update for the 12th of October 2024. So far the only party who has acted completely disgraceful in this conflict has been Ukraine. They routinely target civilians. They've hit office buildings, residences, civilian businesses in Russia. And of course, Zelensky just says, I'm just trying to stop the war. The quickest way to stop the war is to destroy the Russian war academy. Whee! And the Western media go, oh. Yeah. Of course, let's not look at the 1948 report on bombings to reveal the fact that the highest casualties of civilians was unnecessary bombings. The conflict should be... the whole point of the Geneva Conventions was to limit conflict to the battlefield, not target civilians. Oh, but that's why... Ukraine! We gotta free Ukraine! By any means, comrade! The right is completely cocked. No matter what I say, you just all blankly stare at me. Of course, and you watch as the retarded liberals go, he's a praying puppet! Dwibble, droll. And the same problem. The right backs up because, no, I don't want to be harassed. So the left go, we're powerful, look at us. We can say, blacks were the natives of the world and nobody will fight back. We can say Cleopatra was black. We can say slavery in Lithuania, drool, and nobody will push back. And the right goes, see, you're not America first. And the left goes, you're not America first. No, you can't stop me. If my constitutional right... No, we should deport all Ukraine flag wavers. Should be deported to Ukraine as foreign agents. Starting with that treacherous scumbag Colonel Vindman, Victoria Newland, and that greaseball in Canada whose grandfather was a real... she hails from the 1930s. There it is, black and white, on a non-Russian source. Ukraine hits a supermarket in a Russian-occupied city. That's terrorism. That is terrorizing the civilians that you claim to be liberating by murdering them. I suppose they're liberated now, aren't they? From their lives. But then Ukraine will cry and say, Russia killed civilians. Russia targeted our infrastructure. Russia doesn't want peace. I'm Captain Scarshield. Yeah, I know people are going to tune out. At this point, I know the account has been manipulated. Nothing I can do about it. I know people won't like, share, and subscribe. Nothing I can do about it. I know people can't tell that I'm not on both sides. That's because they're politically on the wrong side of history. If you support Ukraine, you support the Democrat globalist agenda. Full stop. If you support Russia, maybe that is your right. But you're in the likes of Jane Fonda. Because Democrats Oh no, Jay Bond is a hero! Bernie Sanders supported Russia. Oh, but he's a hero! There is just so much hypocrisy in the world. What's the point? I'm branded a white cis male. The Liberals have made up their mind and want to destroy me. They want to see my family line wiped out. They want to see my people wiped out. They want to see Scotland populated by Africans. They want to see Australia wiped off the map. They want to see China rule the world. And the right, I just want to be left alone, man. You can't, don't twit on me. But when you see somebody else get attacked, you're on your own, buddy. Ask for support. Oh, yeah, Sam Parker could go out and fundraise off shocking his own dog. He could literally make money off being a bad guy. The right? Oh, I'll get you next week, bro. Oh, but you're not Charlie Kirk. You're not American. And all the other excuses I hear. So don't expect me to shed a tear when the left fuck you over too, buddy. You know the old saying? First they came for the Applegates. No, I wasn't at Applegate, so I didn't speak out. They came for the redheads, but I wasn't the redhead, so I did speak out. They came for the Jews, and I says, I'm standing with Israel. They came for the Republicans. Oh, we'll get them in the next election. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes it doesn't. You think no matter what Democrats do, they would be losing voters. Nope, it's seesaws, because the centre, it doesn't affect me, so I don't care. The centre, mate, ain't the centre. They're just the cowards. The people who say both sides, they're cowards. They're all jellyfish, spineless little jellyfish running around saying, don't twit on me. But when you try to defend their freedoms, you're Putin puppet. You may think I'm unhinged. I'm just mocking and ridiculing the absolute absurdity. There it is in black and white. A mall set on fire, hit by a Ukrainian military drone. There, the Russians hit a railway depot, a military target. United Kingdom wants to patrol Russia's border, but they won't protect their own from Africans and Muslims and Pakistanis from crossing their borders illegally. Your governments hate you. If they stand for Ukraine, they don't stand for you. They stand for war. They plan to send you to war so they can get rid of you, so they can replace you with cheap Muppets who will vote for socialism and globalism. Because these weak politicians, all they care about is getting their hands on more money so they can num and all the goodies in life. Just like the Communist Party in China. There's no difference between the Democrats, the Communists in China, and the left in Europe. They're all gutless mafia cowards. Actually, organised crime have an honour code. The Democrats do not. Sorry, organised crime, I forgot. You actually have an honour code. You actually have limits. However, this is actually a lie. It wasn't Zelensky. I'll get into that later. This media, of course, Vladimir always steps in and takes the credit. But in fact, it wasn't Vladimir who said it. But first, a battlefield update. Kiev shed tears. Boo-hoo, the Russians attacked us. Meanwhile, we do have actual battlefield action in the north with, by the looks of it, expansions a little bit, not much, of the buffer zone. We have Ukrainian attacks on Russia in Belgrade, a civilian target, not a military base. Fighting in the buffer zone. Not much of action in the north, so it's hard to say if there was any. Again, reports vary on Kupiansk and say the Russians have more of Kupiansk than the Ukrainians admit. But again, they don't have all of Kupiansk either. Russian offensive has launched in north of Lyman, and it's making it clear that it is a drive, as I said the other day, of the three possibilities. It is a drive through the centre here to cut these roads. And in the meantime, they'll shell Lyman and other areas while cutting off the south, Seversk, before driving the Ukrainians out of Seversk. Now, Chasiv is in Russian control. No further expansion in that area. There has been no further expansion on the siege of Konsk. There's still fighting in the north, renewed fighting, offensive actions in the Pokrovsk area, shelling of the usual targets. West, further military action, expansion here of the territorial gains. Offensive actions to push back against the Ukrainian offensive last week. The only one that hasn't been pushed back entirely. Remember, all the rest are gone. This is the only territory Ukraine. Well, and yeah, Russia is pushing on the road to Zaporozhye. They have made some gains. Yeah. Of course, Ukraine attacked Donetsk and admits it on their own website. So, don't say alleged when the Ukrainians are telling you they attacked Donetsk. Now, Russia strikes Ukrainian energy facilities, which Ukraine fails to report. Russia has inflicted heavy losses on the Ukrainians, which the Ukrainians fail to report. It is actually, this story here is a lie. They are not independent. They are British intelligence. And they suck Zelensky off like he's the second coming of Christ. Because they are Satanists. They have no morals, no scruples, anything for power. They're the lowest of the low. Betray friends. Backstab. Lie. Frame enemies. Start wars. You know, all the niceties of life. Why we can't have peace. Because there's no profit in peace for them. There's only... Their profit comes from war. It was actually Nikolai Ezrov who urged for Trump to apply the similar pressure strategy used in Gaza to Ukraine. It's impossible to hold elections at the moment because if elections are announced, Zelensky may win. No reasonable politician will be able to come to power. Whatever is necessary is a transition period. What is needed is a plan, one Trump offered for Gaza. Establish a temporary administration for 2 to 3 years, holding elections later. Same scenario should be applied in Ukraine. Since February 2024, martial law's been in place, and we'll get to that later. But officially, Zelensky's term has ended, and despite court cases telling him to hand power over, he extended it for another day, extended it again in November 5th. Now, the Donetsk Singer complex was set fire to by a Ukrainian drone. It was hit about 10:24 p.m. The entire building was engulfed, and emergency crews managed to extinguish the flames after hours of fighting them, and were only able to prevent them from spreading. Fortunately, no casualties were reported. UK will say, "See, we didn't target civilians." Yeah, you're lucky the night filler crew people got out in time. It was luck, not planning. There is opposition to the war. Hungary is collecting signatures to oppose Brussels' military plans for war against Russia. Folks, do not be deceived. Europe is moving towards war. It is pushing for war. It is waiting for a weak moment where they could pressure Trump into war, or trick him into war, or force a war by sparking another crisis. Orban says the EU cannot win. It'll be another Afghan situation. European parties do not want Europe to return. Europeans to return from Ukraine in coffins. Europeans have been urged that end this conflict. Ukraine will be divided, demilitarized, and there will be a Western zone afterwards. Okay? You just have to give it time. But Zelensky's only caring about Zelensky. He's only caring about his 340,000 324,000 a year USD. He doesn't care about Ukraine. Doesn't care about the people. You think he's a liberator, then you're an asshole. There's nothing that will save you, nothing that will convince you. You're an asshole. There's no redemption for you whatsoever if you think Zelensky is a good man or a good person or a liberator. You are an irredeemable asshole. And I don't care if you call me a Putin bootlicker. I have how many times I have to condemn him? No matter how many times I condemn him. It's like President Trump, no matter how many times he condemned Richard Spencer. But do you know who Richard Spencer endorsed? Kamala Harris. You heard nothing from the media about that. Richard Spencer only claimed he endorsed Trump, but that was after the election. The left always... He's a psyop. He's funded by PBS. He gets regular interviews with PBS. It's a scam, people. Richard Spencer is just a grift. He's a creation of the left. All socialists are left-wing. They call him a right-winger. No, he's just right of Marx, okay? He's not right-wing. You've been deceived, gaslit, over and over again, and you refuse to be educated. You've refused to have your minds liberated from the grift of liberalism. Every liberal democracy has ended in fascism, folks. Athens, the Roman Republic, The Greeks several times have devolved into fascism, and they're now creeping backwards and forwards. Spain creeping backwards and forwards with socialism. England devolving into a fascist state. Look at every liberal democracy. They're irredeemable. Canada is irredeemable. People want to leave Canada. It is that toxic. And soon to be overrun by Indians, colonisers, who complain about the British colonisers, of course, while they're colonising Britain and Canada. And you refuse to grant land rights to natives because you cry like little babies, thinking you're going to have to pay reparations. Meanwhile, the Liberals are trying to force you to pay $14 trillion to African Americans for the crimes of African Americans. They're not victims, they're criminals. It's time to wake up to the bullshit that the liberal agenda. They get into government and they rob you and they overpay for government contracts. Massive government waste. And you just stand there and take it because, I might get a good job. If I just want to go, well, boy, don't leave me alone. Now, this is where we're out of audio for copyright issues, but what we have is Ukrainians of various ages, mostly young people, who want an end to the war. They're also protesting the loss of loved ones, unnecessarily returned to the front, died in combat, even though they're supposed to come home when wounded. Never happened. People just, once they're scooped up by the army, they don't come home. Parents who've lost children, young boys who don't want to be sacrificed so that Zelensky could stay in office. For ordinary Ukrainians, they don't care about Eastern Ukraine. As far as they're concerned, Eastern Ukraine doesn't want to be part of Ukraine. They don't want the Russians around. But they say, if the Russians move out of Western Ukraine and go to Eastern Ukraine, so be it. That's, to them, that's the solution. That's the end of the war as far as they're concerned. It may not be what you want, but you don't get to decide Ukraine's fate by adding more war to Ukraine's problems so that the UK, France and Germany can loot Ukraine, just like they looted Germany just like the Liberals, America and all the others. They all got together, decided that Germany was a threat, and they looted Germany. And then, ta-da! America suddenly becomes an extremely rich and extremely powerful country overnight. You may think that was a good thing, but 19 million people died so you can have a brief economic boost after World War II. Just so Roosevelt could go down in history as the anti-fireable anti-pass. Look at me, I protected the 6 million Jews. Which is a story for another day, as the 6 million Jews who left Europe for Israel ended up causing another 70, 80, maybe 100 years. Who knows how much conflict. How many times will you be lured into foreign wars so that Keir Starmer, a Jewish man with a Jewish wife, with Jewish parents and ties to Israel, and can say, I'm standing up for God's chosen, or Macron, whose business dealings in Israel are secret. But France has a long history of illegal arms deals particularly in North Africa, there is a huge disconnect in the West that we do not see or hear or want to know what illegal activities our governments are up to, and then we pat ourselves on the back when we allegedly liberate a country. But then some Russian troll decides to run a Facebook page, and suddenly it's Russian interference, and the entire world has to burn just because Hillary Clinton's fees were hurt. Because her good friend Vladimir Putin, which was a lie, by the way, Vladimir Putin was Hillary's good friend up until she accused him of interfering in the elections. 6 months prior to Russiagate, Bill Clinton was in Moscow giving a speech for $500,000. Don't tell me that wasn't a payoff. How much money had Russia given to the Clinton Foundation? You all seem to think that God is going to save you. God helps those who help themselves. Will you grow up, please? And stop relying on others and be the salvation that you seek. Because God empowered you. That is the test we all have, to take the power that we are given, to take a stand, to recognize any immorality. We recognize limits on in everyday life, and abuses of power. We see them constantly, and yet we do not back those. We merely seek to be entertained. So many will flick through TikTok today merely to numb their brain like a junkie on the streets. Don't be that junkie. Do not consume the news to be entertained. Be educated. Be an awake, aware warrior against the satanic agenda of the United Nations, who is actually nothing more than a sock puppet. It is like everything. Every organisation in the world is... You can't really ban organisations. We've got to start banning ideologies. Complete wholesale. We've got to defend... We've got to say, well, communists want to ban... Want a one-party state? No, we ban them. What? Communist Party of all these countries committed atrocities? No, we ban them. But ultimately, you have to make sure that they can't just rename themselves, because that's what liberals do. Okay? Liberalism is renaming itself to progressives. Okay? They used to be known as eugenicists. Okay? Hillary Clinton's favourite woman is a eugenicist. And they decided that white people must be culled because too many of us don't want socialism. We won't. It's a social pressure. If you go along with them, they'll be nice to you, and suddenly all the land of milk and honey. But eventually they run out. Look what happens in China. They run out of other people's money, don't they? So please, you can. It costs you nothing to click the like button, to share this video, and to subscribe. But more importantly, I need you to join my Patreon, buy my books, buy my merch. I need support. Okay? Increasingly, if I cannot reach, the algorithms are against me. They will not recommend my channel unless I get 1,000 subs. Okay? They are changing the algorithm. Every day, there are creative videos out there telling us, well, you got to get more subscribers. You got to get more likes. In order for views to count, you got to have interaction. Most people aren't live streaming anymore because there's nothing. What's the point of live streaming? Most people are just going to watch. The agenda is there for everybody to see if they look. Okay? They're relying on you believing what they say. Priska was telling you how safe Chicago was while wearing a straitjacket. Virginia, despite making death threats, the Democrats has 47% of the vote. People don't care. Stop caring what liberals think about you. They hate you. There's nothing you can do about it. You have to keep them out of power and they'll burn out, okay? They're destroying themselves. But you can't allow them to get into power, and you can't allow them to keep going unchallenged, recruiting kids and indoctrinating them in schools. And you cannot rely solely on one person, okay? Please, support me, support others. Stop relying on the government, okay? If you empower a good president, you also empower a bad president. It's the people who should have the power, not the president. That way, you can't have... Because you imagine what happens if Hillary gets... or someone like Hillary gets in office. What if Kamala gets in office? Or worse, Pete Buttigieg. Eventually people will forget what the Democrats did and say, we've got to give them another chance because we can't have a Republican dictatorship. Yet they have Democrat dictatorships all over the United States. Because that is the problem with the middle. They are not the middle, they're the cowards. So please, support the channel. Bye for now.